So I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, and that was in the year 2000, so it's been almost 23 years now since diagnosis. My memory of this is a little bit hazy, only because I was 9 years old at the time. So I don't really remember any sort of lead up to the pain that I had. I just remember walking to school with my mum, and we were just sort of almost about to turn a corner, and I got this like really sharp pain in my shoulder and my arm, and then we sort of carried on walking, and then I was like, no, I'm like, I'm in real pain, and then so we sort of just turned back and managed to get a GP appointment. I think I was a pretty good kid, so it wasn't like a ploy to get out of school or anything like that. So we managed to get a GP appointment on the same day. And I think on the same day also we had x-rays done. And then I think there was about maybe within about 2 weeks, I was diagnosed. So I think from the x-rays, I think there was other tests. Within 2 weeks, I had a biopsy done. And then shortly after the biopsy, I was diagnosed. Yeah, and that all took place at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital in Stanmore. But then this was also 23 years ago, so I feel like the NHS was in a much better state and much more sort of quick turnaround times in terms of being seen and things like that. The other thing I do remember actually is the room that we were in. So it was in Stanmore, and being in a room with my parents, and I think I just need to get this out and then. So I sat down with my mum, because there were 2 chairs in the room, and my dad was stood up. And when they told us, I think for me it went over my head. Yeah, for me it went over my head, but I sort of turned to look at my parents. My dad lost balance. I had chemotherapy, so I had like a 6-week course of this, and I remember this making me feel very sort of lethargic, very sick, in and out of hospitals due to sort of coughs and colds. Like the really smallest thing would sort of have you in hospital, sort of struggling to overcome the slightest common cold or something like that. And then I also had surgery, so that was for removal of the tumour itself. And then also had, so after removal of the tumour, I had the bone in my lower leg, the fibula, put in place of my humerus. But this turned out to not be a viable option. So then I had another surgery to put the metal prosthetic in. So that was the whole shoulder joint, the humerus, and sort of down towards the elbow. And then after surgery, it was a lot of rehab with physiotherapy, hydrotherapy to really get the mobility going, because I remember it being very stiff. I remember having, the bandage on for sort of like a year, and my arm in a sling, and just having that was like my comfort, noticing that I was still holding my arm in a position as if it was still in a sling, and I had to almost relearn to sort of straighten my arm and swing it to so it wouldn't feel so stagnant when I was walking. In terms of long-term effects, I think the biggest one for me has been the toll that my left arm has taken in the sort of everyday brunt of life, really. So I've had a lot of sort of repetitive strain injuries in my wrist, sort of pain in my shoulder, a lot of stiffness, sort of pain running up into my neck, things like that. And I think it's just the way that my body sort of needed to adapt to sort of compensate for the lack of mobility and strength in my right arm, and sort of dominating, whether it's in something sporty or something like that. So that's for me has been the biggest long-term effect, and that's something that I still feel as well every now and again, where I've overused my arm, and I feel the sort of the tiredness or the pain the next day, or even sometimes like the slight swelling behind my shoulder. Other late effects I have had are sensory neuropathy issues, so sort of numbness, pins and needles, tingling. But I find that tends to happen more often when my magnesium levels are low. So when I supplement or get a prescription or something when it's really bad, then that tends to help with that sensation, because it can be quite uncomfortable. And then in terms of other long-term effects, so these aren't things that are current, but definitely on my radar. So things like for fertility issues or reaching menopause at an earlier stage in life than the average female, sort of cardiac issues, renal issues, and that's just down to the strength of the chemotherapy drugs and those side effects, which might not be initially felt when you're a very active child, but can sort of potentially catch up with you when you're a lot older. The advice I would give to other patients, I think for young kids or young adults, I think journaling helps, to write down your thoughts, what you're experiencing, what's happening, and then you sort of, when you're older and you read back on it, you sort of look at the progress. Taking pictures as well. I'd say that would be advice for maybe families themselves. So my mum did this a lot. She took a lot of photos for my memories, and it filled a gap where my memories are a little hazy during that time. So I'm quite grateful to have those photos. I think the other advice I would give to families or parents is, I think as kids sometimes you might not want to speak about it, and I think when you're a young teen you kind of want to fit in. You don't want to be that different kind of person, that odd person, so you do sort of tend to hide it or not want to speak about it, and I would probably say just be patient, because it will come out. Being part of the British Asian community, South Asian community, I think some of the challenges I guess that I've faced have been, I guess, quite unique feelings for me. It's a community that can be quite closed-minded, especially the older generation. And I definitely remember when I was a lot younger, sort of 9, 10 years old, a lot of staring, like Olympic level kind of staring, muttering under their breath, sort of pointing, and I remember being the center of that attention, and I definitely don't like being the center of attention now. So yeah, those are my memories when I was younger. And then I think as I developed into my teens, you become more self-aware and you want to fit in, and that's when you start to start to sort of close down and retreat into your shell a bit. I've overheard not so great comments. Comments like, I should cover up. People just like referring to me like she was the ill one. Sort of feeling a bit nameless. And I think it's because the community is very much prides itself on like what other people think, and it's quite inherent within the community. Like I said again, with the older generation, that your value is very attached to your physical appearance, your ability to earn and maintain a good job or have a good job, your ability to get married. So I was very aware of these perceptions from other people. Even small body language, like a look of shock because I decided to move out to university sort of 4 hours away from my home, and sort of how would I cope, and these sorts of comments or inferences, which kind of made me feel like, sort of closed up, to not want to speak about it, and that was mainly because I didn't want other people to perceive me as someone different or someone who wasn't as capable. So I think there was a level of sort of underestimating you as a person. And like I said, a lot of the, I guess, admired qualities in sort of South Asian communities is your ability to earn and have a good job, get married, and these are some of the things that I thought about would be challenging for me just because of this diagnosis and the disability as well. The other thing I want to say is I think British-born generations here are a lot more aware of different people, more aware and open, and also understanding more understanding of not just the sort of surface level traits of having a job and things like that, but more other qualities that you have as a person. So like your strength, your courage, your resilience, you know. I think managing relationships has been difficult as well. There's always been an air of concern around how much support I would need, like as a partner, when I grow older and things like that. Even though I'm like very independent, it's still, I've still had to have uncomfortable conversations like that, and almost have to over-explain my abilities or my strength, that I can do this, I can do that, and I am, you know, I can be an equal partner. So I think awareness is important in terms of bone cancer itself, the diagnosis. It can, like, the symptoms can be very easily passed off, especially when you're a young child. You know, small bumps or swelling, yeah, easily passed off as just sort of day-to-day child activities and things like that, I guess. Growing pains is another one. So I think that's important to be aware of if anybody is experiencing symptoms like that, that is more long-term and can't be explained due to a bump or a fall. The other thing I think is also important is, I think it's one of the cancers that can lead to a disability. You know, whether it's having limb salvage surgery or an amputation, you know, it's another complexity. As well as the cancer, it's another complexity on top of that is life-changing as well. I think another point with regards to awareness was bringing that awareness to British South Asian communities, as it's a community that I'm a part of and I've grown up in, so I definitely understand the perceptions of people in that community, and I've experienced you know, good things and bad things that a community can bring, but definitely the certain remarks and things like that can have a lasting impact, especially when you're a teenager and sort of growing into adulthood. Yeah, so the support I've received from the Bone Cancer Research Trust has been really great. So I actually reached out to them a couple of years ago, and that was basically in an effort to meet other people that had been through something like myself. So it's been great that the Bone Cancer Research Trust you know, puts on these support groups where you can sort of chat on Zoom calls. So that's been really helpful, just to share stories, and it's been nice to sort of keep up to date with each other as well, and provide sort of snippets of advice. The other thing which for me has been really good is to provide a platform where I can speak on my story. So 2 years ago, I came to this conference and did a speech on stage. So it was very emotional, but it definitely felt like a weight had been lifted off me after I'd finish my speech. So that was really helpful, I think, in terms of my own sort of personal healing. Yeah, so in that sense, it's been really good.